Howdy, howdy. My name is Kyle, and I'm a 3D artist. I've made many projects over the years, including some that got relatively popular on Sketchfab with many wonderfully kind comments. Despite telling people several times that I'd make a YouTube video showcasing how I do my art, I kept putting it off due to, well, having a full-time job. A few months ago, I was laid off, and now over 200 applications later and no job offer, I may as well utilize this time to do what I said I would do. So today, we're going to be taking a look at this cute little fishy, and I will showcase a time-lapse of the modeling process as well as go over my thoughts throughout the video. I appreciate anyone who checks out the video, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Now, right away, I don't want this to be a beginner's tutorial. I don't want this to be a step-by-step, click this button, go here, do this sort of thing. This is more meant to be kind of just like a, here's my artistic process, here's the type of colors I chose, here's what I did to get here, the type of geometry I'm using, and the modifiers that I'm using to get the desired effect that I want. So first things first, I just import the reference image and then I add in a simple plane. Then I use a profile-based modeling approach to sketch the outline of the shape that I'm looking for. This process typically takes me a very long time as I'm not super versed in being able to articulate what should go where, what polygons to place, and where. I tend to overmesh things at first with a lot of geometry, and then I optimize and minimize it later as needed, which is traditionally bad practice, and a lot of people will likely more than criticize this approach. I'm not really targeting game engines here, I'm just kind of going for pure aesthetics. Something you'll notice is that I take a lot of time doing things that end up not really working out in my favor, with a lot of mistakes being made and Control-Z happening every 5 seconds. I'm by no means a professional, I just do this for fun and I have no monetary purpose here. I just enjoy the process of bringing a new dimension of life and saturation to an art piece that made my world just a little bit better, as I hope to achieve the same unto others. After getting done with the body and the eyes, I start modeling the fins. They're just planes again that are sketched into the shape of the reference image. In general, it's always good practice, in my opinion, to save time by duplicating things you've created before and manipulating it to have the shape that you're looking to achieve instead of starting from scratch each time. Now here I'm just kind of adding the camera, I'm adding the scene, the collection and all that. I'm getting started with the process of adding Grease Pencil's line art. Now I'm not super familiar with the line art modifier in Grease Pencil as a whole, however I have really enjoyed the process of what it can offer because it does give you kind of like a hand sketched effect as long as you add the correct modifiers. You'll see here I'm adding line art, multiple strokes, noise, and length. Those are kind of like my go-to for right now. I did notice that if you add subdivide, you do want to put it near the end, but this is part of my process where I'm sort of figuring things out and kind of just clicking away, trying my best to figure out where things should go. Honestly, I kind of just click things until stuff works. Now here I'm just kind of doing a little bit of geometry editing. I'm just kind of making it feel like an actual 3D object rather than just a 2D plane. I want the fins and the kind of like the tails to go a little loosey-goosey, wacky-waney, you know. here's the process where I start adding textures. I applied a material to the base body of the fish, and I decided to kind of try to just sketch in these little scales here, and I'm just kind of figuring out where each one should go, what setting I should use, figuring that out. I do use a 2K texture, so that's something of note. I don't think you really need one that large for something so simple here. You could probably get away with 1K or even probably 512, but do whatever is most comfortable for you and what your computer can handle. I unfortunately do not have a super nice PC. It is a decent PC. It's nothing terrible, but it's certainly not, you know, an RTX 5000 or even a 4000 series. It's just a midline. I think it's a 3060. It works great for what I want it to do, but it definitely limits me in quite a lot of processes here. After adding in some more texturing work and trying to make it a little more hand-painted, I'm editing the brushstrokes yet again. Just kind of trying to figure out what would give more of an authentic feel to somebody actually hand sketching this on like a sheet of paper. Next process is modeling the accessories that are in the photo. So in this case, this will be these little flowers here. Very simple geometry yet again. These are just planes. The middle is just a square plane that I applied a subdivision modifier to and then bumped it up a little bit to make it look kind of like a half sphere. And then the petals themselves are just planes that are same thing as the fins, just normal profile modeling. I'm making two variations of the flower here, so that way it doesn't look too repetitive. You could probably get away with just doing one and then maybe adding some modifiers to it. You'll see here I am using a simple deform modifier to this, and kind of trying to figure out what settings I can get away with that still look organic without it having to be individually modeled on each one. I have decided to keep my mistakes in here just to kind of showcase that we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. You'll see there I did mess up the original UVs on the flowers. I had to kind of redo the secondary flower. I unwrapped the UV of the first flower, and then I made the second flower and realized I could save texture space. I could just put it all on one. I had to re-unwrap, and then apply the color to each petal individually again. Those are those little mistakes that I think a lot of YouTube tutorials tend to gloss over, and me personally, it did make me feel a little bit intimidated when I got into 3D art a long time ago. I would see these perfect, flawless tutorials that would just look amazing. People just knew exactly where to go. They would know exactly what to click, what to hit, and they never really articulated that they spent several iterations figuring that out. And I think that that's an important distinction to make, that it's something that you'll just figure out in time. It does take a very long time to make these. These are not one and dones, at least not for me. I am by no means a professional, and I am figuring things out as I go, and I mess up countlessly along the way. So here I'm applying a decimate modifier to these, quite a few of these models actually, the planes here, and just kind of realizing that the decimate modifier makes the hand-drawn effect of the grease pencil line art kind of look more hand-drawn. And I think that's because of the subsurface modifier that is on the grease pencil. So if you have less geometry, then it kind of has more of a curvature, which is an interesting discovery that I found. So I decided to stop applying such a high density geometry to the base mesh and let the line art modifier kind of do the work for you. Same process here, I'm just adding a simple stroke. This one just isn't outlining the actual geometry itself. I'm drawing in these individual strokes, and it does work quite well. I did have to play around with it a little bit to figure out like how to get it to only apply to the mesh, or the plane rather, and not overlay on the wrong part in space. Sometimes when I would go to do the stroke, it would just kind of sit there in space, or it wouldn't be in the right spot, and I figured out that there's a few different buttons you can click up top and how the stroke is applied to the plane. So you just want to kind of click around and try different things until you figure out what works. Here's another example of those mess ups. When I was doing the texturing, it did not do the texture directly in the middle of the mesh. So I had to go through individually and kind of fill in that gap that the texturing had. Overall, this is looking pretty good, but I did notice when I actually render the image, it would show that the top of the fin in a certain part of the line art modifier was not applying the subsurface, like it wasn't smooth, and I couldn't figure out why. So I was kind of pulling my hair out here, as you can see, trying to figure out what exactly was causing it. I was clicking around to a bunch of different buttons, wasn't sure what was causing it. I did end up figuring it out later, found out that the subsurf does need to be lower on the list, as it is a tiered system. After that, I did want something that was kind of in the air. I just wanted it to kind of look like it was painted, and it's not perfectly in the lines. So I'm just adding a plane here that's in the middle of the space. It's not part of the mesh technically, it's just kind of its own thing. Now this is part of a brush pack from Craft Reaper, the graphical brush pack as well as the illustrative brush pack. I did purchase those, though he does have a demo, I believe, for free. And this is also the Aquarel brush pack. Aquarel? Apologize if I mispronounced that, but the watercolor brush pack from Craft Reaper is something I am unfortunately unable to afford at the moment, though I did purchase some of his other stuff. So I'm hoping I'll be able to purchase that at some point in the future, but the Aquarel brush pack is fantastic. I highly recommend it to a lot of people. Overall, I'm just trying to decide which one works, what type of thing doesn't have any outside lines along the alphas on the texture, because certain brushes, and certain colors I should say, tend to have that kind of like dark line effect. As you can see here, I'm trying different things, trying to figure out what might work, what doesn't. This is part of that process I mentioned before where, you know, I am I'm not a professional. I don't quite know what works, what doesn't, and why something doesn't always work and why some of it does work. So I'm just kind of going with the flow here, pulling my hair out a little bit, trying to figure out what I can do to get this to look the way I want it to look. Overall, I did eventually land on something I was pretty happy with, and ended up with this as the final result. Now, as a final send-off, I do want to say that this is my first video. It is not perfect. There's some audio issues that I was able to kind of figure out on the fly. As far as the actual art itself, if you have any suggestions or requests, or you just want to know something, or if there's anything I missed, which I'm sure there's quite a lot, feel free to ask me anything, any comments, questions, any suggestions or advice, feel free. As far as Sketchfab specifically is concerned, as we know, grease pencil doesn't really convert to mesh very well while keeping its visual properties.
So if you would like a tutorial or just a process go over of how to get something that uploads to Sketchfab nicely and cleanly, I'm happy to do that as well. There are various ways to do line art modifiers. I appreciate everybody checking out the video, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.